what you've joined tonight and what our goal for this evening is, we want to address 6 questions. And those are, what is a worshiping community? Is now really a good time to start something new and something different? And do I have the passions and the gifts and time to start that new thing? What does a worshiping community need to be part of a congregation? Where can we meet and how often? And where can I find help along the way? So these are the questions that we want to try to address tonight in this webinar. First, let's cover what a worshiping community is. If you joined the webinar that we did in June, back in the summer, we talked more in depth about defining a worshiping community. Tonight, we're just going to do one slide to give you a very brief definition. A worshiping community is 3 things. It is a community for those who do not know Christ, for those who want to know Christ, and for those who already know Jesus Christ and are seeking and looking for a place to worship. Where we are today in 2020 is, as leaders in the church, whether we are ordained or laity, we have recognized that there is a deep need in the world that we are a part of. And as Christians, we have the opportunity to address the needs. There is isolation, there is loneliness, there is frustration, there is anxiety. We as Christians can view these emotions and many more of the traumas that are happening in our lives, in our family lives, in our neighborhoods, and in our communities. We look at those through the lens of Jesus Christ, and we look at those with peace and the possibilities, and we find hope in the message. Not everyone and not all of us can experience that hope and feel that peace all the time. A worshiping community, a worshiping experience is a place where we can go to feel renewed, rejuvenated, and feel safe. So we recognize as Christians that there is deep needs within the world that we are part of, within the families that we are a part of, and within the neighborhoods that we are a part of. How do we address those as Christians? One way to do that is to be able to start something new, something different. As Cumberland Presbyterians in 2020, we've been able to adapt and to change to the circumstances that has been placed before us. There's also another side to this deep need, is that we want to be able to do something that is meaningful. And we, as Christians, we want to be encouraging and we want to impact people's lives. Sometimes we have to search for places to make a difference and to make a change. But the desire is there. For those who are connected to the church, whether you are ordained to the Word and Sacrament or whether you are just a leader in the congregation, there are times when we feel inside that our gifts, our abilities, could be utilized in different ways, or maybe they're not quite being tapped into in the current circumstances and the current ministries, the current places that we are attached to. So what a worshiping community can do is help us feed a spiritual need of sharing who we are, providing us meaning in our lives and in our discipleship, but it can also reach out to those who do not know Christ, for those who want to know Jesus Christ, and also specifically for those who are looking for a place to worship. So a worshiping community can reach those who may never enter into the sanctuaries, into the buildings and the facilities that we find very important to us as Cumberland Presbyterians. We have seen already in 2020, 8 months into this new world that we're a part of, that for those of us who have adapted and enhanced the technology, we've noticed a wave, or at least an interest, of individuals and even families who want to be connected to community, to a group of people, and have never entered into the sanctuary that we call church, that we even call our home away from home, but have felt a sense of connection through the tech, felt a sense of connection of worshiping with others. So a worshiping community can reach people in ways that maybe our existing ministries, our existing congregations are not able to do it currently and haven't been able to do it in the past. Let's look at the passions and the gifts that we do have. Time and time again, Johan and I, when we are working with new church developments and we're talking about new ministries, people say, well, I don't have the gifts of speaking. I'm nervous when I get in front of people. I don't always know what to say, or I talk too much. And they don't feel like that they have the gifts for leadership. I think we can and should flip that coin and be able, this worshiping community is able to start and begin by looking at the passions and the gifts that you do have instead of the things that you don't have. I share the story, for example, of my wife, Melissa, and Johan's wife are both very good cooks and bakers. Enjoy making those foods, breads, things that make you want to lay down and take a nap after you eat them because you just fill yourself up so much. I don't have that gift. I have the gift of eating it, but I don't have the gift nor the patience of putting the ingredients together. So for me to go, you know what, I'm going to be a baker, I'm going to be a cook, I'm going to open up a restaurant, that would not work out too well. However, I have other passions and other gifts. So I think if we look inwardly and we look at the things that we enjoy very much, if we look at the strengths that we do have, that is where we can build different groups and start new ministries and worshiping communities on the things that we enjoy and the things that we are good at, as opposed to talking ourselves out of starting something new. I think it's human nature for us to be able to talk ourselves out of just about anything. So let's reverse that in terms of doing some self-examination and contemplation and reflection and being able to go, okay, these are the things that make me tick. These are the things that make me smile or I spend hours on that I really enjoy. Is it possible to start a new ministry, gather a group of people to be able to share some of those same things where you can worship and study and pray and fellowship and sing together? Visualizing a worshiping community. Questions that we often get is, does a worshiping community, does a new ministry have to be attached to an existing congregation? And the answer is both yes and no. If you would like to start a new worshiping community where people gather in your home or gather in a safe place where you can study the good news, where you can pray, where you can sing, where you can celebrate the sacraments, then you can do that as a complement to the ministries that you're already a part of, or it can be something that is brand new, that you are reaching a brand new group of people that your existing congregation or your ministry or your vocation hasn't tapped into yet, who hasn't made an offering. As I mentioned earlier, there are so many people that have apprehensions about entering into some of our worship environments, just the leeriness of it, the expectations of clothing or of standing up and sitting down. Should I clap? Should I sing out loud? Should I be quiet? All those different things. And a lot of times folks will back away because they don't want to embarrass themselves. But if we were to invite someone over to our front porch or our back patio or to our living room or even virtually, similar to what we're doing now, there's something about that hospitality of being asked to come over to somebody's home or being asked to come over to somebody's back patio or doing something through the technology that is less intimidating. And a worshiping community also offers something else that can be missing in other settings. Worshiping communities can offer the opportunity for discussion and dialogue. It's one of the pieces that I always felt that was missing when I served churches in the past is, as a minister, you pour yourself into the preparation and the study, and then, of course, the delivery. But then there's no opportunity for true dialogue where the listener is able to go, wait, slow down, or wait, I have a question, or wait, what version of the scriptures are you reading from? A worshiping community can allow those opportunities to be able to share and listen and grow closer to Christ through small groups, through something new, and also just offering something that may provide a different type of hospitality. So it really is about embracing and adapting to change in 2020 and also in the years to come. One of the questions that we get is, where can we meet and how often and who do we invite and where are we inviting them to? I already made mention just a moment ago about some examples would be is maybe hosting something in your home. You can also do something virtually. 2 days from now, we have a worshiping community starting on October the 1st with Reverend Abby Cole Keller. She may be on here. If you are, Abby, hello. Abby is starting a worshiping community at the beginning of October that is solely virtual. And so she is gathering people from different parts of the United States to be able to study together, to be able to be in dialogue, and they're going to have live chats. They're going to have, these are not Abby's words, but my words, going to have like study assignments, and then that will set up some times for engagement later on. So who we're inviting and who we're including, I think we have to do is also based upon our passions and also upon our gifts, and think of the settings that we would like to start something new. So keep that in mind if you are thinking virtually and using technology. How would you gather that group together? What will those invites look like? And then if you're also looking more physical in terms of the locale, how will you invite folks? Are you inviting them to your home? Are you inviting them to another part of your church facility? So keep those in mind, keep those things in mind, that who you're inviting and who you're including may also depend on the context of your new ministry, of your worshiping community. Same with choosing a meeting space and time. Very few of our worshiping communities and very few of our new church developments currently meet on Sunday morning between the hours of 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. A lot of our worshiping communities and new church developments are meeting at different times of the week and different times of the day. And the reason that they're doing that is because we have so many people around the world that are having to work 6 and 7 days a week or have to work on Sundays. Also, a lot of our leaders, if not all of our leaders, are already connected to a local congregation. And whether they're lay or ordained, they have commitments already on a Sunday morning. They may be the minister, or they may be a Sunday school teacher. They may be an elder. They may be a volunteer. So a worshiping community All of ours, or most of the ones that we provide leadership for and resources for, are meeting at other times. Meeting on Tuesday nights, or meeting on a Monday night, or meeting during a weekday. It's based upon the community that you are trying to gather. So keep that in mind in terms of space and time, that we are all on God's time. And so this time has been a gift to us. How are we going to use it, and how can we share the gospel? Shouldn't be limited to the 6 to 8 hours in this narrow window of the week for sharing the good news of God. Johan is going to take this next part in finding guidance for a worshiping community along the way.
Okay, so this idea of worshiping community has been developed by the missions ministry team, but in reality, it started in the life of the church at large. Because many people came to us asking us, what do we do, for instance, with a congregation that we started several years ago, and they only have 7 people, and they are gathering every weekend, and they are having worship service, but they, according to their size, according to their giving, they don't fit in our what we call the stereotype of what would be the standard Cumberland Presbyterian Church. So we started calling them names, like maybe a mission point. And at that point we said, no, they are worshiping communities, because the nature of these groups are to worship and glorify God in an environment of people that have things in common. So as missions ministry team, we said, if we can help presbyteries to understand those concepts, if we help the groups to understand those concepts, we can work together in order to develop this idea. So it took time for us to develop this. And it's an idea of the missions ministry team in terms of doing this kind of thing. So what do you need in terms of starting a worshiping community? You can go to the Confession of Faith, and you will find the concept of worship. And also, if you go to the directory of worship, you will notice that we don't have a unique, uniform, standard style of worship. We have several. And if you go and visit several churches around the Cumberland world, you will notice that we have multiple ways to worship God. So worshiping community fits in that even basic aspect of our Cumberland Presbyterian identity. So where to go when you are trying to start a worshiping community? Start with yourself. And I want to encourage you to test your gifts and personality. It sounds funny, but in reality is that sometimes we don't pay attention too much to our gifts and personalities. So if you have the chance at least to explore literature, or if you can explore those personality tests, it sounds funny, or those motivational gift tests, you can start at least a conversation with others in order to test your personality. I'm the right person to this. But this is something that I always share for sure. God calls us to do this. A worshiping community is a ministry led by the Holy Spirit. So because of the nature of God in our lives, we are able to give who we are in the setting of worshiping community. So I don't want to stop by sharing resources. We will share at the end a little bit about what's next after this webinar. But think of that. From time to time, we need to go back to see how our personality has been affected, how our gifts have been used in order to fulfill what we call a ministry of a worshiping community. The missions ministry team is willing to support those interested in starting a worshiping community by providing specific questions. Do you have a vision? If so, do you have a particular focus of ministry? If so, do you have a location or a place where you would like to gather? If so, let's put all those things together in a written plan that can be short, that can be shareable, that can be something that you can use as a reference and a starting point. And from then on, we can work together in evaluating, checking with one another how everything is going. At this point, we don't put a denominational support. Why? Because we are still in that stage where this is new. So some judicatories are not aware of the worshiping community concept. Some congregation sessions, some church sessions, they are willing to explore this, and some have been involved in that dynamic. But the missions ministry team can provide that kind of guidance in terms of allowing people to explore in conversation with us what the church or what the worshiping community look like in your mind, and put it in something written that can be something you can measure. Worshiping community practitioners. We already have some worshiping community practitioners. We have Pat with us here. We have Cardelia here. Reverend Rusty is there, but you can see that in some levels, David Montoya is starting a worshiping community as an extension of Marshall First Cumberland Presbyterian Church. Freddie and Gloria are leading also a Spanish-speaking ministry in First Cumberland Presbyterian Church in Houston. So those are aspects of the church that make the church grow, but those are particular worshiping communities with particular focuses. So if you are interested, I want to encourage you to look at those who are doing it, those practitioners within the Cumberland Presbyterian Church, and ask questions to them. So at the end, we will have a list of practitioners in participants of this webinar. So finding some answers or feedback from them, that's useful. So take into account that there are already some practitioners. And something that we have shared, TJ and I, is that you don't have to do this by yourself. When Milton and I started the conversation about starting a worshiping community, I said, if we want to start it, we don't do it by ourselves. Even more, we said, the two of us are not doing it, only the two of us. We called one particular person, one particular couple. We knew that they are how do you call these people who are people persons? They are people who are always in relationship connection with other people. And those were the ones bringing new people to the group. So in the first year, all the new people we had, it was because of this couple, not because of Milton and I. Milton and I had different gifts, but we started to identify team players. And that's important when we talk about worshiping community. Think of those who might be interested on working with you in this new plan, because you will find that it is better when you have a team. And something we used to do with Milton every Monday after the worshiping community time, it was checking in one another. So how was it? Did we fulfill our goal? There are things we need to improve and change. That's the advantage of having a team. And you can test the personality and gifts, not only of yourself, but also of your team. So that's part of the dynamic of having these resources available where we can have feedback and new ideas. And this is very important. Keep communication with a spiritual leader or mentor. I would prefer to have a person who is an external person who can listen to me in my frustrations, my joys related to the ministry. It is important to have at least one person who is all ears, listening to you in order to share with them about this is my dream, this is where I'm going, in the direction I'm going. And it is important to have always the aspect of having a mentor or a spiritual leader. We have shared that before in our first webinar. And think of meaningful worship, discipleship, evangelism, and church planting literature. I put all of these together. Why? Because the nature of the church includes all of these aspects. And when I say meaningful, it is because what is meaningful for me working with an intercultural worshiping community might not be the same for you who are working with a specific group of people. So what is meaningful for you, keep that in mind, or look for resources that can really help you in building the worshiping community concept. For instance, here in the US, when I read the Pew Research Center, they have a religious aspect. And one of the things I do often is to check how is Christianity going and in terms of numbers here in the US. So by 2009, Christianity was 75%. And that includes Catholics and Protestants. By 2019, it dropped to 65%. So according to how you understand and read data, it will be something positive or something challenging. From my perspective, I'm not focusing on the 65%. I'm asking the question is what's going on with the other 35? And 26% of the 35 who were interviewed for this organization, they said, I don't have anything particular. I don't have, when they asked about religious affiliation, they said, well, in reality, I don't have one religious identity in particular. And I said, that's the goal. That could be one of the goals. When we focus on people who have not been reached out by the church or who were familiar with the church, but not necessarily engaged with the dynamics of the structural aspect of the church. So meaningful literature for me is to read about the historical trends of the church and where we are as the church here in the US, working among different groups of people. And missiologically also, we say that it is a cross-cultural work in terms of reaching out to other cultures, but at the same time, it is working with groups of people. In working with groups of people, it could be also working with interest groups, groups of people who are like me, who have maybe the same needs, and we can find the space to gather together to worship and glorify God in this setting. So far, this is a general overview of things we have as missions ministry team, but we want to encourage you to think, if the Lord is calling you to do something like this, do you think you have the courage to do it? Maybe that's one of the questions. The passion to do it and the gifts to do it. And my answer is, I think you can do this. I think we can do it. So I'm going back to you, TJ.
Okay. As Johan is changing the slide there, I want to address three questions that were not brought up in our conversation. I was trying to think of what may cross your mind. Question one, do I have to be a leader? The answer is you need to be a Christian and you need to be a Cumberland Presbyterian to start a worshiping community. How often do we need to meet? You meet as often as you can. Sometimes our groups are seasonal. Just like Ecclesiastes says that there is a time and there is a season, some of our worshiping communities just meet for a season. And then the other question I think that you may come up in your mind is the goal of these new ministries, is the goal of a worshiping community to be a Cumberland Presbyterian church? And the answer is no. It can be, eventually come Cumberland Presbyterian Church. But the goal of a worshiping community is to offer worship to others so that they may grow in God through Jesus Christ. It is really that simple. We have created so many parameters and hoops for us to jump through just to do ministry. The heading of this webinar is the possibilities are infinite. And that is very true. We can open ourselves to the workings of the Holy Spirit to be able to move and to think and to contemplate and to ask questions of what would a new ministry look like in my setting, in my context, with my passions and gifts, so that others can grow closer to God. And that answer is going to vary from each and every one of us. So I just wanted to touch base on those thoughts and comments that I had that we did not address along our discussion this evening. Everyone, thank you for your time, and we'll close with a reading from the Confession of Faith. And this is the criteria that we hold up every worshiping community. This is from the Confession of Faith 5.14. And it's the section heading is called Christian Worship, and that includes 5.12 through 5.15. We focus on all of those, but primarily 5.14. So let's listen. Christian worship includes proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ, celebrating the sacraments, reading and hearing the scriptures, praying, singing, and committing life and resources to God. This common worship of the church validates and sustains such other worship as the church finds meaningful for celebrating the living presence of God. This is how we define our worshiping communities that are already sharing the good news, that fall within the Cumberland Presbyterian family, and this is also the standard that we have for new worshiping communities to come. Amen. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.